He wore the uniform of a hero, but none of that mattered when the flashing lights appeared in his rear-view mirror. To the officer pulling him over, he wasn't a firefighter rushing home after a long shift. He was just another black man behind the wheel. The stop should have been routine, but it quickly spiraled into something far more dangerous, stripping away his dignity in the very city he risked his life to protect. What neither man knew was that within minutes, their roles would be reversed in the most unthinkable way. Marcus had always believed his work spoke louder than words. A firefighter for nearly a decade, he was the man who ran into burning buildings when others ran out. His neighbors knew him as dependable, courageous, and steady, the kind of person you wanted on your side in a crisis. After a grueling shift filled with smoke, alarms, and exhausted breaths, all he wanted was to get home, shower off the ash, and hug his kids before they fell asleep. The streets were quiet, the kind of calm that only came after midnight, and Marcus felt that familiar relief of another day survived. But as he drove through the dimly lit neighborhood, something shifted. Red and blue lights cut through the darkness, forcing him to the side of the road. His stomach sank, though he couldn't explain why. He had done nothing wrong, nothing unusual, and yet the weight in his chest told him this stop wouldn't be like any other. He reached for his badge, the one proof of his service, but a chilling thought struck him. What if it wasn't enough? What if, in this moment, all the fires he had fought, all the lives he had saved, couldn't protect him from the one thing he could never escape? The flashlight's beam cut across Marcus's windshield, sharp and blinding. His hands gripped the steering wheel, steady but tight, as the officer approached with a kind of authority that felt less like law and more like judgment. The questions came fast, clipped, and laced with suspicion. Where was he coming from? Why was he in this neighborhood? Marcus answered carefully, every word measured, his badge tucked neatly in his wallet, waiting to be his shield if things turned worse. But he could see it in the officer's eyes. It wasn't enough. To him, Marcus wasn't a firefighter, wasn't a protector, just another black man on the road after dark. Minutes dragged like hours. The officer circled the car, his hand brushing too often against the holster at his side. Marcus's pulse pounded as he thought of his family at home, unaware of the storm brewing on this quiet street. He knew the stories, men stopped for less, men who never made it back. And tonight, the weight of those headlines pressed on his chest like smoke in a burning room. The officer's tone sharpened. He asked Marcus to step out of the car. The pavement was cold beneath his boots, and the night air felt heavier than the smoke he'd breathed hours before. He stood there under flashing lights, heart racing, his uniform tucked away, invisible to the man who refused to see him. Marcus wanted to shout his truth, to say he'd carried strangers out of burning homes, that he'd risked his life countless times for people who might never know his name. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't matter. And then, like fate mocking the moment, Marcus caught the faint, acrid scent of smoke in the distance. He turned his head just slightly, enough to see it, a faint orange glow rising into the sky, not far from where they stood. A house fire. His instincts kicked in instantly, years of training surging through him. But before he could move, the officer's voice cut through the night, sharp and commanding, freezing him in place. What Marcus didn't yet realize was that the fire consuming the night belonged to someone much closer to the officer than either of them could imagine. The officer's radio crackled with urgency, reports of a house fire just blocks away. Marcus's head snapped toward the rising glow, flames now visible against the night sky. His instincts screamed at him to run, to act, to save whoever might be trapped inside. But the officer blocked his path, one hand on his chest, the other still hovering near his weapon. Every second felt stolen. Marcus could almost hear the crackle of wood splitting, the suffocating smoke filling rooms, the silent screams of anyone inside. He tried to step forward, but the officer shoved him back, his voice sharp with suspicion, not understanding that the man he was holding was the very one trained to fight what was happening down the street. Then came the words over the radio. An address. The officer froze. Marcus watched the color drain from his face, realization crashing in like a wave of fire itself. It was his house, his family, his children. The tension snapped like glass. For a moment, the officer stood paralyzed, torn between the fear he projected onto Marcus and the fear now clawing at his own life. And there Marcus stood, his chance to either walk away or prove once again who he truly was. The flames were climbing higher, painting the sky with terror. The officer's voice cracked, no longer commanding but desperate. In that instant, Marcus had to decide, stay shackled by injustice or run headfirst into the very fire that could consume everything. And as he bolted toward the blaze, one truth burned brighter than the flames behind him. The same man treated as a suspect moments ago was now the only hope for the officer's family. Marcus didn't stop until the last child was carried out, coughing and trembling but alive. The flames still raged, but the family was safe, huddled together on the curb, watching their home collapse in smoke and ash. The officer stood there, speechless, his face streaked with soot and tears, realizing the man he had once treated as a threat had just risked everything to save what he held most dear. For Marcus, the night was not just about a fire. It was about something that burned even deeper, the weight of being doubted, dismissed, and dehumanized until his courage forced the truth into the open. He had done his duty, not for recognition, not even for gratitude, but because that's who he was. Yet beneath the sirens and smoldering ruins, he knew the injustice he endured could not be erased by a single act of heroism. The officer's eyes said what his words could not. Shame, humility, and a quiet acknowledgement of his own blind prejudice. But Marcus also knew this was bigger than one man's awakening. It was a story echoed in countless lives, where black excellence is questioned, where trust is withheld until tragedy proves what should have been seen all along. One fire was put out that night, but another still burns, a fire of inequality, of suspicion, of systemic injustice. And it begs the question, how many more times must black men and women prove their worth in moments of crisis before they are simply believed, respected, and treated as equals?